just going live on the other platforms. So we are now on StreamYard. You can also see this on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Hope you're having an amazing week. First week of August. Can you believe? Thank you for being here. I have been thinking more and more about the practical things that I can share in my journey because I personally have lost and kept off 15 kilograms. I've roughly halved my body fat percentage. I used to be closer to 30, maybe even a little bit over 30% body fat, if you can believe that. Now I sit closer to 14 year round. And sometimes you just get so used to living a certain way that you forget things that might be of use or interest to other people. And that's the sort of thing I want to share more and more of. I want to share the really practical stuff, the really high value insights with regards to how I live my life, how I plan my meals, how I exercise, train, and how I navigate the relationship with me, my body, and my health. Because, again, I think that is the more tangible stuff that people need help with. And if I can share anything of interest in that regard or anything of value in that respect, then I think it goes a long way in showing people how to walk the talk and talk the walk, how to walk the talk. You know what I mean. So that is what today is all about. I want to share the really, really practical side of things, my journey, and the shifts that I have created in terms of my thoughts and approaches that have helped me to keep the weight off. Because a lot of us have lost weight at some point. That itself is not particularly hard if you understand the two numbers you need to lose. Well, actually, if you want to lose weight, you only need one number. If you want to lose fat, however, you need to understand two different numbers. And I dive a little deeper into that in a previous training. If you scroll through my socials, you'll see that in my Instagram feed, you'll see that somewhere on Facebook, you'll see that somewhere on LinkedIn. So if you want to understand the two numbers you need to lose fat, that's really simple. Scroll through. If you want that sent to you, just comment in the comment section or send me a direct message and I'll get that over to you. That was a previous training that I've done about 2 weeks ago. So that one is really, really easy to get over to you. But if you want to keep the weight off, that is where people tend to have a few more mishaps, shall we say. That is a little bit more challenging to integrate healthy living with a busy lifestyle. If you have 14, 15, 16-hour days, if you have frequent travel, if you have long haul flights, if you have family, if you have children, if you have a business, it all becomes a little bit more tricky and challenging to navigate and keep the weight off once you've lost it. And these are the shifts that I've come to make and that have helped me to continue in my journey, and not just continue, but also keep the weight off that I've lost. So that is what we're diving into today. The first part that I wanted to highlight, the first like really tangible thing I wanted to share with regards to shifts I've created is understanding my internal dialogue and my choice of language and words on a deeper level. It's getting hot in here, so I'm going to take my hoodie off. Don't mind me, guys. It's a warm one today back in Singapore, and the sun is shining. Yesterday was a little bit cooler. It was a little overcast, but now the sun is out in full force. So let's remove a layer. Language really, really highlights a person's psyche. It really, really it underscores a person's obviously emotional state and the perspective from which they are setting goals, the perspective from which they are creating change, their intentions, their programming. What I came to understand in a lot of the work I've done with my own mentor is how we judge ourselves and how that contributes to our success and or our quote unquote failures. When we use words such as should, we automatically imply self-criticism and judgment that keeps us stuck. So not to say that I never use the word should, not to say that I never ever criticize or judge myself. I am human too, of course. Though I've just become a lot more aware of the language I'm using and whether that language is contributing to me moving the needle on my health and fitness, or whether the language I'm using is discouraging, disempowering, and perhaps keeping me stuck and perhaps keeping me where I am instead of allowing me to get to where I want to be. One of the biggest shifts I have created is just becoming more aware of when I'm using the words should. I should do a workout today. I should go for a run. I should start that diet on Monday. I shouldn't eat carbs after 6, etc., etc., etc. And I'm not advocating for any of those, and I'm not discouraging you. I'm not pro or against any of that. By the way, they're just examples. It's just language that I tend to notice in the people I work with. It's language that I have noticed my former self using a lot. I'm not going to lie, a lot. And reframing, taking a step back and giving myself the space to breathe, be human, and evolve has been super powerful. It's very hard to create long-lasting behavioral change when you continue to use the same language, because again, language reflects where you set your intentions from. It reflects your current belief system. It reflects your relationship to yourself, to those thought patterns, and it really, look, it says a lot. The language you use and choose says a lot about where your subconscious is at. If you want to create change, then you have to dive deep into those beliefs and you have to make an effort to unpack them. When you do that, you're then able to evolve your language and shift the way that you see yourself so that you can then map your actions to your newer belief system, your evolving belief system. So that's been tremendously powerful. Judgment does not help anyone take a step forwards. We do not need help being assholes towards ourselves. We tend to be quite good at that as it stands. And using judgmental language, if you notice that in yourself, chances are it's reflecting how much you criticize, critique, judge, and compare yourself. And that is just perfectly human. That's completely okay, of course. There is something to be mindful of is that is not going to help you, okay? Being harder on yourself doesn't help you. Being nicer to yourself, recognizing how human you are, recognizing that you're doing the best that you can with the resources that you have is going to help you a lot further than trying to be stricter on yourself, creating more rules about food, more rules about nutrition, and creating more judgment about how little you've done, okay, which just tends to be how people think. I've only done this, I've only done this, I've only done this. I'm forever reminding people of how much they have done because it's all worth celebrating. Some days turning up is the hardest thing. When you let yourself tick the box of turning up, then suddenly you feel a lot more successful, and success breeds success. So it tends to snowball in a really positive direction when you allow yourself to celebrate small wins. That's been another tremendous shift that I've made for myself and with my training, is detaching the outcome from the session. Previously, I would go into every single workout with the mentality of I have to better absolutely everything from last week. I have to lift more weight than last week. I have to do more reps than last week. Or honestly, I'd probably just start to cry. I would get really pissed off, really frustrated, really angry. And weirdly enough, that didn't help me make any progress. Of course, all it led to was emotional upset. Now I go into a workout of let's just see what we can do. So the perspective in which I go into every single training session is, okay, I feel how I feel. That's fine. I want the benefit of having done this workout because the 40-year-old version of me thanks me for this body and thanks me, like present me, for all that I'm doing for it. The 50-year-old version of me thanks me for the work that I'm putting into my health today. The 60-year-old, 70-year-old, 80-year-old, 90-year-old, 100-year-old version of me is grateful for today's workout, and that compounds over time. And so really I'm in this for the compound interest. I am just as excited to be able to unscrew jars of peanut butter when I'm in my 80s as I am today to be able to back squat 115, 117.5 kilograms. I'm equally as excited because being independent and strong into, I was going to say into my old age, but I don't think I'm there yet, into my 4th decade of life, 5th decade of life, 8th, 9th, 10th decade of life, is super exciting. It's such a privilege to age. If I were in Sierra Leone, I would probably be the oldest person there. And my mum has been to Sierra Leone. She has shared with me her interactions and experiences with the people there. The life expectancy is 37, 38, 39. It's really low. So when you have goals for, 4 decades from now, 5 decades from now, as well as 30 days from now and 6 months, 24 months from now, that is really what helps me to stay in the game, so to speak. I am not attached to the outcome of my workout today. Of course, I have numbers in mind of what I want to hit in terms of the weights that I lift. I know that I want to pick up 42.5 kilo dumbbells for today's deadlifts. I know that I want to do, I think I'm at 65 kilograms, might be 70 kilograms for my seated leg curls. I want to hit that number today, of course. But if I'm so attached to those numbers that I then don't go through with that workout, or that I'm not able to keep in that workout because my emotions get the better of me, then I've not benefited from it. Okay. I don't reap the benefit and the rewards of that workout if I interfere with that progress because I've decided that the workout is only valuable if I hit certain numbers. Ultimately, even moving my body for 30 minutes and lifting weights for 30 minutes, it's still better than nothing. Okay. It's still a privilege. It's still a pleasure. It's still an honor. It's still a lot more than what a lot of people have been able to do. And I'm grateful for that. The tremendous shift that I've made with my training is detaching from the outcome. And if today's weights are not the heaviest I've ever done or equal to the heaviest I've ever done, it's annoying. Not gonna lie, I'm very competitive, but it's still okay. It's really not the end of the world. And chances are next week I would do a personal best or be back up to my quote unquote usual standard and usual numbers. People get so caught up in always trying to be so perfect and improve everything every single way that they don't let themselves get enough compound interest to actually see the benefit of taking all that action in the first place. So they don't get to the point of having trained 6 weeks continuously, 12 weeks continuously, 6 months continuously. And continuously, I mean consistently. That's a better word. They don't get to the point of having trained for 24 months consistently to actually see the benefit of having trained for 24 months consistently, because they think that if they don't get today's workout perfect, then it's not worth it. A lot of my clients turn up jet lagged. They turn up having gotten up at midnight, having got up at 3 a.m., having got up at 5 a.m. because their child was sick, or because they're jet lagged, or because they have a million tabs open in their brain. And for whatever reason, they keep waking up every hour on the hour and they still turn up. And in 99% of cases, they still benefit from having turned up, because 5 imperfect workouts a week is still better than 1 perfect workout a week. Okay, I'm going to say that again because I think we need to really get the importance of consistency. So 5 imperfect workouts a week is still far better than 1 perfect workout a week. Okay. I'm forever saying this to my own clients. If I only trained when I really felt like it, when the conditions were quote unquote perfect, when I'd had a great night's sleep, when I'd had the perfect pre-workout nutrition and hydration, when I'd had the best headspace going into my workout, I would only train maybe twice a week, once or twice, and that would work out to be maybe 104 workouts a year. And instead, I consistently train 6 times a week. And I've done so for at least 7 years now. I've consistently trained for 12, I think this is my 13th year of training. I built up my frequency over time because, to give you a little bit of context, when I started training, I was returning from an injury. I was not able to train as frequently as I wanted to because my body was not in a space to receive that amount of exercise. And so I had to very gradually increase my exposure to exercise. So when I started exercising in this chapter of my health and fitness journey, I started with 3 times a week. Prior to that, I was injured for 2 years. Prior to that, I was swimming at an elite level. I was training 9 times a week. 9, yeah, a lot. And doing 2 to 3 gym sessions a week and a 7 kilometer run each week. And I hate running, by the way. But that was my reality. So when I returned, when I was well enough to return, I initially started with 3 times. 3 became 4, and as my body continued to recover from my injury, 4 became 5, 5 became 6, and now I consistently lift weights 5, if not 6 times a week. And then sometimes I'll do just one workout, which is just aerobic work. So my 6th session might only be cardio. It might be an hour-long cycle. It might be a 90-minute walk. It may not be lifting weights, but on average, I lift weights 5 times a week. Fits into my lifestyle. I like that. It feels good for me. I have a little too much energy. If I don't get that 5th workout in, I feel like I've got a surplus of energy and I feel a bit too like jittery, like I'm bouncing off the walls, and I don't like that. I feel a bit unsettled. So that's what feels good for me, but everyone is different. Everyone has a different cadence. Completely respect that. So I guess if we circle back to my original point, which we're getting a little far from, you have to give yourself the space to make progress. And when you're attached to every single session being completely perfect, you interfere with that. And again, you don't then get to build the compound interest of having consistently trained for 12 weeks, 24 weeks, 24 months, and beyond. Most people don't actually see the body that they want to see until they've been consistently training for at least 2 years. That's just reality. Not to say you can't make progress before then, of course you can. Not to say that you can't see changes in body composition, feel a difference in your clothes, look different in the mirror. I mean, see noticeable changes when you look in the mirror. Of course you can. Though most people don't see what they expect to see or want to see until they have that 24 months worth of training under their belt. And 2, that's roughly how long it takes for people to see the shifts in themselves. There is a delay between, the change and how you see you. We don't see those changes when we're so used to seeing ourselves. We often don't see it until someone says something, and then we look a little closer in the mirror, like, oh, ooh, hey, look at their shoulders, like, look at that definition. So there is a delay where we don't instantaneously see the definition being built, or the abs looking a little more sculpted, or the face looking a little more chiseled. We are not so in tune to seeing that. And again, often it just takes 24 months before we start to see, before we start to notice, before we feel the difference. So, but you cannot reach that point if you need every single session to be perfect. So, detaching from perfection, detaching from the outcome has been a huge shift that I've made to my training. Now, when I go into every session, honestly, my take is like, okay, let's see what we got. Let's see. And some days the weights feel heavier than usual. Some days the weights feel lighter than usual. Love those days when they happen. They don't happen often. It's not the majority of the time, but we take it when it happens. And everything else, I'm just so grateful that my body is no longer injured. I'm grateful for having 2 arms, 2 legs that work quite well. They're short, but they work. And that's the main thing. That takes me a whole lot further and will continue to take me further down this path, further into this journey for decades to come. And I say that having now been in my 13th consecutive year of, it's my 13th consecutive year of training. December 2010 was when I was able to return to the gym after my injury. So that is pretty amazing if you ask me. Next shift. This is a really interesting one that I noticed in myself. When I first started exercising in the gym and returning to training, I really thought, how could anyone weigh their food? How can anyone make the effort? How does anyone have the bandwidth? How can anyone put in the time to weigh their food? That just seems so flipping boring to me. I didn't think I could ever be bothered to invest that time. I didn't think I would ever have the bandwidth. I just didn't think I would even be interested enough to weigh my food. So I remember the first time hearing about this when I was at the gym with my mom, and she was telling me about how the owner of the gym was training for a figure competition, a bodybuilding competition, and she had an amazing physique. I mean, like, full credit to her. She was really impressive. And I remember my mom telling me that she was on a really strict diet and she has to eat 100 grams of chicken and she has to eat X amount of grams of broccoli and rice, and everything is measured and weighed and trackable and traceable and accountable. I just remember thinking, like, what the hell? People do that? How boring. And I'm now one of those, I'm that person. I've become that person. And that is really surprising to me if I think back to where I was when I first heard about that, in terms of not just where I was geographically. I was back in Brisbane, now I'm in Singapore, but to the mentality and headspace I had back then was like, whoa, people do that? That just seems to take all the fun out of food. And the more I learned about nutrition and personal training and fitness and strength and high performance, remembering too, I was not a trainer back then. I was not a high performance coach. I had no nutrition certifications. I had a very deep intrinsic interest in that field, though I was not practicing, I was not working in that field. So, what I've noticed is when I give my body regular intakes of high protein foods, my energy levels are so much more consistent throughout the day. I don't have dramatic plummets in energy, not very often. That is a rare occurrence for me. Definitely a little lower on the energy side towards 4 p.m., 5 p.m. That's just my natural body clock rhythm, what have you. And we all have that. I would argue it's actually a healthy thing to have lulls in energy, as you should. Okay, you're not always going to be the Energizer Bunny at all times, though making an effort to get consistent intake of food every, for me, 3 to 4 hours is good. It's a good rhythm, fits with my schedule, works with my lifestyle, and making sure that food is of high protein. So I'm getting at least 20 grams of protein per snack or per meal has been an absolute game changer. I've noticed my metabolism feels a lot faster. That's not surprising. Protein goes further down the digestive tract before it gets broken up and utilized by the body. So it helps to keep you feeling full, but it also helps to build muscle. And of course, building more muscle is going to make you more metabolically demanding. It's going to naturally elevate your metabolism. So that has been a very interesting shift in mindset and perspective, but also approach to nutrition. And again, I don't have time for guesswork. I am up at 4:30 in the morning. Most mornings, I try to get to bed by 10. No, I'm very good at getting to bed by 10, actually. I try to get to bed a little earlier, even 9:30 if I can, to get a good sleep, good rest. And I don't have time for guesswork. I don't have time to be trying to look for food on the go, sourcing healthy, nutritious foods. I like to be planned. I like to be prepared. I like to have all that sorted out. And the way that I meal prep my food means that I'm getting 20 grams of protein per snack or per meal, and having the right amount of carbs and protein before I exercise. Also, tremendously powerful. Having enough protein at the start of the day, again, keeps my energy levels elevated. I'm typically busier in the morning, so I have back-to-back morning clients. I don't have time for brain fog. Personally, I find carbs give me a bit of like brain fog. I just feel really slowed down if I have too many carbs in the morning. That is just a thing I've noticed for myself. Nothing against carbs. We need them, especially if you want to lean up, build muscle, burn fat, etc., etc., etc. So that's worth noticing, but it's been a really big shift for me in terms of being so on top of my protein intake. And I get about 2.4 grams per kilo of what I weigh every single day. Most people don't even get one, and you need at least 1.5 if your goals are to lean out, sculpt up, build muscle, get stronger. You need to at least hit 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of your weight every single day, irrespective of whether you exercise or not. That's just what your body needs in order to perform all of that. If they're the demands you're putting on your body, if they're the goals that you hold, if you're not hitting that number, like, game over. You're doing things the hard way. So that is tremendously powerful for me, focusing on protein and fiber in my main meals, and then having my carbs before training, because that's when my body is going to do the most with those carbs. And that's another shift that I've made. Previously, I would have had and when I say previously, I mean closer to 10 years ago, if not 13, 14, 15 years ago, I would have had carbs with every meal, just because I didn't know any different. I didn't know any better. I thought that's just what you did. You just tried to get protein and carb and fat every single meal. And what I've come to learn is that you don't need to, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. If that works for you, that's great. It just wasn't really working for me in the same way that what I'm doing now works a whole lot better, if that makes sense. So previously, if I were to have eggs at lunchtime, I would have a slice of toast for every single egg that I had. And when your girl is hungry, she's eating a lot of eggs. That would be, no joke, like 4 eggs and 4 slices of bread, but then no exercise because I was injured, so I couldn't exercise. I really was not able to move my body without being in a tremendous amount of pain. So that was just not a very good approach, but I also didn't know any better. And you don't have to have carbs with every single fucking meal. You don't have to have toast at breakfast. You don't have to have bread as part of a sandwich at lunch or part of a burger. You don't have to have potato at dinner and rice at dinner and pasta at dinner. You don't need to have any of those at lunch. And again, if you want to, fine. But my question is, is that the best way to do it? And for me, the answer is no. So I've detached from having to have carbs at every single meal. And now what I would do instead, if I have eggs for dinner, I often have eggs for dinner. It's quick. I like it. I think breakfast is all day in Australia, at least. Breakfast is any time of day. It's not just in the morning. Instead, I've substituted bread for corn thins or rice cakes. I find, yes, of course, it's still a carbohydrate. It's a lot lighter on the stomach. It's not as heavy, which means I can fill up more on eggs and vegetables, which is what I want, because I find them to be more nutritionally dense. And I just don't need so many carbohydrates in the night before I sleep. And that's just going to interrupt my sleep because I'm going to be so busy digesting so much bread that I'm not really going to have the experience that I want to have. So I've noticed having something a bit lighter. Yes, corn thins and rice cakes are still carbohydrates. Absolutely. Nothing wrong with that. They're just not as carb rich, and they're much lighter because it's a small cake of corn or rice. And the corn thins are actually gluten-free, which is nice. So if you can't do gluten, the corn option is an excellent choice. Dinner time, that would probably be the most carbs I would have. Lunchtime, however, I have whole wheat pasta before I train, and that really fills me up. It has a bit of protein, which is nice. For me, it digests well. My second best option is rice. I digest that well. You may not. Personal preference, no judgment, no shade. Outside of that, I have berries in my yogurt, which is either in the morning or the afternoon as a snack. You just don't need so many carbs all the time, guys. If you got as much energy from protein as what you did carbs, your energy levels would be tremendously different. Your ability to sculpt up, build muscle, lose fat would be tremendously different. And that is a huge shift that I've made for myself, and one that I help my clients to create too. We just don't need so many carbs so often, okay? Vegetables, yes. Starchy vegetables, for sure, they have a time and a place in the diet. Do we need bread all the time? Do we need mashed potato, 300 grams of mashed potato all the time? Do we need half a plate of rice all the time? No. For most people and their goals, no. If you're doing marathons on a regular basis, maybe. If you do endurance sports on a regular basis, maybe. If you're going to do a Spartan race tomorrow, maybe. And that's actually coming up in August, which is this month. Outside of that, it probably could go a little out-handed, and you would see some difference on the scales, in the clothes you wear, in the mirror, and in the water retention, because of course every gram of carb holds 3 grams of water. So That's worth factoring in. If we move on to the more training side of things, because I've talked a lot about nutrition, if we go into the training side of things, what I have changed with my training is I only now do progressively overloaded forms of exercise, if that makes sense. So I have tried CrossFit in the past. I have done the workout of the day situation. I have tried Zumba before. It's fun. It's great. It's not progressively overloaded. CrossFit, there are some elements to it that I like, that are helpful ish. Do you know, in terms of all the fad approaches to exercise, it's one of the most robust in terms of what they vouch for, what they push, what they factor in. My qualm being is that, again, it's not progressively overloaded. It's not programmed. Okay. So now when I go to the gym, well, like I ever leave the place, but when I'm in the gym, when I'm training myself, I have 4 to 6 exercises that I go through for each body part. Okay, this is not all in one day, by the way, but just to give you a weekly breakdown overview, I would incorporate 4 to 6 exercises focusing on a particular body part, and I would really chase intensity for the reps that I do. And so I'm very, very focused on progressive overload, meaning that every time I train, I'm trying to do one more rep at that weight, or I'm trying to increase the weight itself. So if I did, for example, 42.5 kilograms for single arm bent over rows, which is what I did on Wednesday, then next week I would actually keep the weight the same because I did 10 reps, but instead I would aim for 12. So next week would be 42.5 kg, same weight, though I'm going to be aiming for 12 reps instead of 10. I did 10 reps on Wednesday, just gone. Then the week after, I might increase the weight to 40 kilograms and see if I can get 8 to 10 reps instead. Okay, so you either increase the weight or you increase the reps. When you increase the weight, usually you drop the reps. Okay, so progressive overload. That's what I'm particularly focused on. The CrossFit doesn't really factor that in. They tend to chase reps and a lot of volume of things like deadlifts and snatches and cleans and squats and front squats. That's a lot of load on your lower back. Okay, so what I found with that is just not programmed enough. It's not progressively overloaded enough where that progress becomes really tangible, and it's just a bit too random. Okay, with the way that I train, with the way that I train my clients, we're trying to get one more rep. If we can get 2 more, amazing. Like a lady I trained this morning, she managed to get 10 reps at 50 kilos for her back squats. Previously, she had done 8, and so that's 2 more reps than her previous best, which is fantastic. Okay. Next week, we'll try and get another 2 reps. So we'll try and get 12 reps at 50 kilos for her back squats. And then the week after, we may increase the weight. In fact, spoiler alert, we're going to increase the weight to 52.5 kilos and see if we can get about 9 or 10 reps. That's how you should be approaching your training if you want to make really tangible progress and if you want to get stronger. What I've also done with my own training is, instead of just doing 3 sets of 15 for everything, which I see females do all the time, and it irks me because, yes, you can make the argument for endurance, but your endurance is actually going to improve a lot better if you get stronger across all rep ranges, not just 3 times 15. And chances are, when you want to stop because you're tired, you can do 7 or 8 more reps. And we know that because we've studied that. That's what studies have shown. Studies have shown that when you think you are done because you're tired and you're sore and you're like dying, you can actually do another 7 or 8 reps. And that's when you know you're lifting the right weight. If you get to 15, and again, this is what I see a lot, this is what I see all the time, people do their last rep and they look fine. They're not sweating, they're not spluttering, they're not swearing, they're not shaking, they're not cursing me. So they're way too comfortable to be making progress. People don't push themselves hard enough to get the results that they want to get. They still stay very comfortable. They go to they go to the outskirts of discomfort, but they stay on the outskirts of discomfort. And that's why, again, people plateau, people don't make progress, people don't lift heavier They are like, oh, I don't know why I can't lift a heavier weight than last week or last month or last year. If you were doing the same weights that you were doing last month, you're not pushing yourself hard enough. Just straight up, you are not pushing yourself hard enough. I like to build up my weights to the point where I'm doing 6 to 10, and all 6 to 10 are very hard. Like, I'm squinting, I'm making ugly faces. If you're not making ugly faces in your training, you're not training hard enough. I want to die. I'm swearing, I'm thinking about food. I'm trying to not think about food because it's distracting, but it's the like carrot on the end of the stick which is keeping me going. I am maybe setting up the safety rails on my back squat because I might fail, and the music is playing really loudly. I've got some really intense like System of a Down or Linkin Park or Eminem playing in my ears. Like, I'm in a real nasty place, okay? That is when you're going to see change. That's when your weights are going to increase. That's when you're going to see the muscle definition come through if you combine that with protein. If you're not getting there, you didn't even turn up, okay? Like, you left a fuck ton of progress on the table. Straight up. Like, you gotta hurt. You gotta be hurting and dying and squinting and like making the real ugly faces. That's when you're trying. Most people don't push themselves to that point in the gym. Most trainers don't push their clients to that point in the gym. Most people don't know what effort looks like. I know what effort looks like. I swam in a pool with triple Olympic gold medalists a few lanes over, and I would see them dive in, swim as hard and as fast as they could, get out, vomit, get back on the blocks, and go again. Okay, so I just have a very different understanding of effort, and I have a very different understanding and relationship of discomfort, which 99.99999% of people don't have. So my point being, the shifts that I've made is when I train now, I'm aiming to get strong across all rep ranges. I'm trying to get strong at 0 to 6 reps. I'm trying to get strong at 8 to 12 reps. I'm trying to get strong at 12 to 15 reps. I'm trying to get strong at above 12 reps. So 15, 20, 30. Some exercises I do for 30 reps, and so on and so forth. So I usually do one set where I'm aiming to get up to 8 reps, like, and they're all really ugly. They are not pretty at all. They're all very squinty and sweary, and I'm making horse noises, and there could be spit going on the mirror or on you if you're too close. And that's how I keep people away from me when I'm training. Hot tip. And then I do probably 2 sets where I'm trying to get 8 to 12 reps. And so that's more for hypertrophy, apparently. And then I do probably a drop off or back off set where I'm just going to town as many reps as I can. I'm just in a world of pain, and I'm making all the noise and trying not to die. And yeah, that's where I'm at. That's a huge change that I've made. Previously, I would do 3 times 12, 3 times 15, 4 times 12, 5 times 10. And so now I would do maybe 2 to 4 sets, and usually they're different rep ranges. At least 2 to 3 different rep ranges. And again, I'm going from 0 to 8 reps, I'm going 8 to 12 reps, I'm going to 12 to 15 or 12 to 20, just depending on the exercise. Obviously, depending on how demanding it is of the central nervous system, and depending on whether it's the start of the workout or the end of the workout, depending on the muscle group slightly as well. So that's a huge change that I've made. And progressive overload. So again, not just turning up and doing anything at any weight and any rep, but trying to take notes of the reps that I do, taking notes of the weights that I do, trying to get one more rep at the same weight. And when I get to a point where I'm really happy with my reps for that weight, then increasing the weight and dropping the reps. Going from there, what I've built over time is adherence levels of 90%. What do I mean by that? When we think about compliance and adherence, that's what really, really moves the needle over time. The people have this all or nothing mentality. They're like on diet Monday to Thursday, and then come Friday afternoon, which is like, it's almost Friday afternoon in Singapore. In fact, it's like half an hour away. That's when people let loose, they let their hair down, they welcome in the weekend with the midday drink on a Friday. If you're Australian, you're already in the afternoon, you're already drunk probably. Love you, Australia. And so what we see there is people are off track, for half the week and on track half the week. When you think about how many meals you have in a week, if you have 3 a day and there's 7 days a week, that's 21 meals. The more you can get to 21 of those meals being on track, the faster you see results and the faster you keep that progress. Now, 21 out of 21 is quite challenging for a number of reasons and for different people for different reasons, okay? 21 out of 21 is challenging because life happens. There's going to be birthdays, there's going to be anniversaries, there's going to be moments that you want to celebrate, and you may want to celebrate with food, and you may want to celebrate with people with food. And that's perfectly normal. That's perfectly human, perfectly valid, completely understandable. The flip side to that is, are you always going to let people affect your food choices and choices when it comes to drinking and your behaviors surrounding food and alcohol intake? Because if so, you're never going to achieve your results. You're never going to get the results that you want, and you will most certainly not keep them. It's a double-edged sword. You have to find a number that works for you. Now, out of 21 meals a week, I probably have a lot more than that because your girl is hungry all the time. But if we just take 21 as a rough number, I would have 19 of those be quote unquote perfect, on track, as per program, as usual. And that's why I can keep these results. It's because when I eat the same shit, different days, copy paste, very boring, but enjoyable, I should say. I really like the food that I eat. I'm not deprived. I am not missing out. I am not upset. I don't feel like I am unable to have the experience that other people have with food. In fact, because I'm so connected with my food experience, I'm so present with my food, I'm so grateful. I cook it, I shop for it, everything. I mean, I don't raise the chickens, okay? Like, I will give that to the farmers. I don't raise the chickens. I don't grow the carrots and the vegetables. But my point being, I'm very deliberate, I'm very present, I'm very appreciative. So I don't feel deprived. I don't feel like I'm missing out. And that really allows me to keep my meals and food selection very much, quote unquote, on track, very much adherent to the plan, compliant with the plan. They're not the best words, but that's the best language I have right now, okay? When people are on track Monday to Thursday and loosen the reins half of Friday and the whole of Saturday and the whole of Sunday, it's very hard to make progress because it's like you take one step forward Monday to Thursday, and then you take half a step back. Then you take one step forwards, then you take half a step back. One step forwards and half a step back. And that's a very slow way to get results, like a very tremendously slow way to get results. But when I thought about this, and when I thought about adherence levels and calculating that as a percentage, that was a game changer for me. And it's something that I use with my clients. And I'm not trying to get my clients to 90% adherence, not necessarily. No, again, everyone has different goals and different lifestyles, different things they need to factor in. Some people have long haul flights, and some people have long haul flights once a month. Some people have them once every 2 weeks. Some people have them once every 6 months. Of course, everyone is different. Everyone has a different lifestyle. That's why you need to factor in your lifestyle first, okay? But if you think about your current adherence level when it comes to nutrition, if you're having breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack every single day, what percentage of that would you deem to be healthy? What percentage of that would you deem to be on plan, on track, and moving your needle on your goals? That is worth thinking about. That's worth factoring in. If you're currently at 30%, so 30% of your food choices are aligned with your goals and where you want to get to with your health and fitness and nutrition, if you can get that to 40%, you'll get there faster. If you get that then to 50%, again, you'll get there faster again. Mind you, if you move the needle too fast, you won't keep your results, okay? Extremes kill dreams. So you have to be deliberate and gradual and intentional and put the systems in place to allow you to maintain whatever adherence level that you have. This, again, is my 13th consecutive year of this health and fitness chapter, learning about nutrition, becoming certified as a personal trainer and as a sports nutritionist and health coach. And this 13 years is a long time to put these things in place. It's a long time to build all these habits into my lifestyle and to integrate the two. So this is not an overnight success. This is not a click of the fingers and like bippity boppity boop, there goes 15 kilos, there goes 15% body fat. Now you can back squat 117 kilograms. Now you can deadlift 110 kilograms. Now you can do X, Y, and Z. No, this is being very progressive. And I encourage you to be progressive with your approach too, because again, when it's progressive, when it's sustainable, then when it factors in your lifestyle first, then you integrate it seamlessly and you keep the results that you get. When you try and go from 30% to 60 overnight, you are going to end up back to square one in 2 seconds. That's really worth factoring in. Another change that I've made with regards to my training would be deload days and exercise selection. So I have in the past done deload weeks, and a deload essentially is where you either halve the reps that you do or you halve the weight and keep the reps the same. The premise being that over time you accumulate too much CNS fatigue, central nervous system fatigue, and that your body needs to have a break from that intensity. You need to have a physical break from the physical stress of exercise, and it is a source of stress in the body. Your body needs to have some downtime to repair and recuperate. And there's merit to that, but there also isn't. So instead of doing a whole week or two of deloading, and some people do this, and if it works for you, then great. But what I was noticing, it was just interfering with my progress. I would be getting to a point of making progress, and then because my program said it's a deload week, suddenly I'm now doing a week where I have too much energy because I'm not training hard enough, and I have a lot of energy, so I need to train hard enough to get it out. And I felt like I was just kind of stagnating. I was just plateauing. I was just like, bit of progress and then plateau, and a bit of progress and plateau. And that's kind of normal anyway, though I just found my stagnation to be a little too noticeable, a bit too prominent, a little too prolonged, actually. What I found since is that if I just have a deload day, it's so much better. And that I don't need a deload week when my nutrition is on point, when my hydration is on point, when my supplements are on point, when my sleep is never on point, but hey, like it's improved. When my sleep is made a priority in my life, when my stress levels let's say, I don't want to say under control, when I feel that I'm doing a good job at managing my stress, when I feel that I am managing my bandwidth really well, then I don't need to deload for a whole week. That for me is a really long time, like 7 days of halving all of the weight that I lift or halving all of the reps that I do. For me, it's just not necessary to do that every 12, 16, 20, 24 weeks. So what I do instead is, if I have a session, let's say I'm training, and the weights that I would usually work up to, if they're feeling particularly heavy, then I just go, okay, today is just a day where everything feels heavier than usual. Maybe I have a little bit of a cold, maybe I have a little bit of a flu, maybe my immune system is just a little more overworked than usual, a little more compromised than usual. Maybe I didn't sleep maybe got 5 hours instead of 6.5 hours sleep last night. Let's just take today as it comes. Let's just do what we can. And if it's fewer reps, then it's fewer reps. And c'est la vie. So that's been my shift there. Instead of dedicating a whole week to deloading, which for me kind of worked out to be really unnecessary, I just take it as it comes. And if I have that day where I'm like, do you know what? Like 20 kilos feels like 30 today. So be it. I'm just going to do whatever reps that I can. I tend to still build up to the same weights. So if I still do 22 and a half kilos for a shoulder press, I still do 22 and a half kilos for a shoulder press. If I still do 115 for back squat, I still do 115 for back squat. But I respect the fact that my body is feeling under the weather, and more worked than usual. Under recovered is probably the best term. And so I just do whatever I can. And again, detaching from the outcome, not stressing about it, not worrying about, oh my God, am I suddenly going to lose all my strength? Oh my God, suddenly I'm a failure. Oh my God, suddenly this isn't worth it. Like, no, that is old me. That perspective is out the window. That is not a helpful perspective to have. And I've just kicked it out of my head over time. I just don't even think about training like that. So when we think about training, the changes I've made are to get strong across all rep ranges, not just sticking to 3 times 15 or 4 times 12 or 5 times 10, sticking to all rep ranges and getting strong across all rep ranges, reducing my need to deload by managing all other areas of life. So managing stress, managing sleep, managing nutrition, hydration, workload, etc., etc., etc. And reducing exercise selection. So again, previously I would have 8 to 12 exercises in a workout, and that is, for me, like really unnecessary. I don't have time for that as well. 8 to 12 exercises is a lot, especially if it's for lower body. 8 to 12 exercises for legs and for back in particular, that's a lot of exercises because they're such big muscles. Legs, biggest muscles in the body. It takes such a long time to recover between sets. In fact, most of my leg day is spent resting between sets. And that's actually no joke. I would spend 3 to 5 minutes. I'm trying to get 3 to 5 minutes of solid rest in between my sets so that I can push myself hard enough for the next set. So most of my leg day is spent trying to recuperate, honestly, and rest and refuel, like getting the snack halfway, getting the coconut water halfway, filling up my water bottle 2 times probably, and just trying not to die. In a nutshell, trying not to die. So I don't have time for that, nor is it beneficial, because beyond a certain point, you should have covered all bases. If you've pushed yourself hard enough, then you don't need so many exercises. And that's another thing that I've started doing with my training is I'm pursuing intensity in those 4 to 6 exercises more so than trying to spread myself further and thinner by covering more exercises. More exercises isn't necessarily better. And 2, if you have too many exercises in a workout, naturally you're going to have to conserve your energy to do that many exercises. You're going to have to conserve energy to do the 8th exercise and 9th exercise and 10th exercise. And you're like 40th working set. That's just not feasible, guys. It's just not. You don't have the time. It is a lot of rest. It's a lot of thinking. It's a lot of, again, conserving of energy. That's not going to help you build muscle. It's not going to help you get stronger. It's just a really good way to get yourself tired. And I think too often we equate tiredness with effectiveness. Tiredness is not what we're going for. We want muscle fatigue. We don't want the whole body being like, bitch, could you just sleep? We want the muscles to be burning and feeling the fire and feeling like the muscles really were challenged. And so chasing intensity during my sets rather than trying to do every single exercise under the sun has made a huge difference to my training. 2 further points, just 2 small ones. I'm going to wrap this up in a second. When it comes to my training as well, other tips that I want to give to you, other things that I've started doing in my later years of training versus my initial earlier years of training is I now use equipment that I didn't previously use because I kind of thought it was cheating. Like I used to think using protein powders and supplements was kind of like cheating. Like you should try and get those supplements and try and get that nutrition from food. And where you can, absolutely fantastic, amazing, makes sense. Yes, because then you're going to get all the vitamins and minerals that come with ingesting that food versus getting a factory version, synthetic version, less, bioavailable version. Yeah, 100%. But you are busy. I am busy. We don't always have time to get 135 grams of protein in our diet a day. So some tweaks that I've made in the later years of this chapter versus the earlier years of this chapter is with my training, I've started to use things like lifting straps. And I would be so much stronger if I started using lifting straps when I was trying to deadlift 50 kilos, because I plateaued at 50 kilos for the longest time because I didn't have the grip strength. I just couldn't hold on. And that's completely understandable because your grip muscles are so much weaker than your glutes and your hamstrings. But in a deadlift, you have to hold the bar. That's how you do a deadlift, right? It's not that the weight is attached to your elbow. The weight is being gripped by your hands. So I've started to use lifting straps. And again, I would be so much stronger if I did that at the start of my journey versus now. I've started using lifting shoes when I squat, squat day, quad day, whatever you want to call it. I've started using lifting shoes to elevate my heels so I can get better depth when it comes to my squat patterns. And with an old Achilles tendon tear and plantar fascia tear, it's made a really huge difference to my strength because now I can get a whole lot lower into my squat movements, and that's strengthening my hips, it's strengthening my quads, it's strengthening my glutes. Of course, my external rotation has had to, it's needed work, but having shoes that have allowed me to get that depth has made a huge difference in achieving all that. So lifting shoes, lifting sleeves, so knee sleeves have helped a great deal in supporting my knees, in creating that almost synthetic tendon ligament surrounding my knees, so that when I am doing squat patterns, I feel more supported and I'm not so focused on what my knee is doing. I'm more supported on pushing with my hips and getting that drive out of the bottom of my squat. So those three changes have been huge. And of course, in terms of supplementation, so yes, I do use protein powders because it's an easy way to get more protein into my diet. I work 14, 15, 16-hour days. I sometimes have 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 clients in a day. I have things like this, which is an hour of my day. So if there's a way to make your life easier and it's not harming you, then do it. Protein powder is not going to hurt you. Now, you shouldn't have protein powders that you can't digest. So I wouldn't suggest having a whey-based protein powder if you don't do so well with dairy, or if you don't digest whey powder very well. Then obviously don't have whey. Opt for something else. Opt for soy. Opt for beef protein powder. Opt for a vegan blend such as pea and brown rice. But my point being, you don't have to make life harder in order to get to where you want to be, okay? If there's a cheat code such as a protein powder and you can add a scoop to your yogurt and suddenly you've got 40 grams of protein instead of 15, then why the hell wouldn't you? Okay, that's just I don't know, beyond me. And another thing, I have run in the past with swimming training. So in Australia, when you're a swimmer, you also do gym work, and at the elite level, the best athletes in the world all have some sort of gym program. We would also go for a run once a week, and I too have pushed myself to run before, and I hate running. If you didn't know that, hi, you must be new here. I am not a huge fan of running. Look, sometimes I get the endorphin rush. Sometimes it's nice to be outside, and behind my house is super nice. Very, very fortunate that there's a lovely, lovely stretch of nature that I can run through. But inherently, I don't love running. I really don't. It doesn't feel right for my body. It feels like a lot of hard work for nothing. I have little legs, very, very short legs. So I have to do a lot of steps to go nowhere. It just feels very unnatural for my body. I don't know how else to describe it, but running just feels very, very unnatural as a form of movement versus lifting weights, which feels a lot more second nature, a lot more natural. Okay, everyone's different. I get that. So what I would suggest is, if you don't like running, don't. You don't have to run to get fit. Okay, and obviously fit being a very loose term here. I think all too often people think that they should run or think that they need to run in order to get fit and healthy and toned and what have you. You absolutely do not have to. And forcing yourself to eat foods that you don't like, forcing yourself to do forms of exercise that you really don't enjoy or even despise or hate is not going to help you be consistent. It's not going to help you to lose weight long term, and it certainly will not help you to keep weight off. Again, if you don't see yourself doing the same thing that you're doing now in 30 days or 90 days or 6 months or 24 months, you have to ask yourself why you've chosen that approach. If you really enjoy carbs, like if you love carbs and if you are trying to go keto, you're going to fail. And I don't mean to be discouraging. I try and be everyone's biggest cheerleader because I really believe in people, just full stop. I believe in humans. I believe in people. I believe we're so much more powerful than we know. But what I know is that's going to cause internal friction. If your actions and beliefs are going opposite ways, it's going to be very hard to succeed long term. So if you're currently using an approach to nutrition, again, if you love carbs but you're going keto, probably not something you're going to stick at. If you hate running but you're currently forcing yourself to run 5 kilometers 3 times a week, it's probably not something you're going to stick to. That's just what I understand about human nature and human behavior. So I really do encourage you to kind of look in the mirror and go, is there something I really enjoy? I personally really enjoy lifting weights. I always have. And I started actually doing resistance training when I was quite young. I was a gymnast before I was a swimmer. So even when you do gymnastics, you do a lot of body weight exercises to build that strength, especially the core. So you end up doing like a lot of planks and a lot of hollow holds. You end up doing a lot of dish. You end up doing arches to strengthen the back. You end up doing some squats. And that was always really fun for me. I always really, really enjoyed that part of our training. Then moving into swimming, that became a little more structured, a little more formalized. And we had gym sessions in the gym itself every single week, several times a week, as well as dryland before training. But my point being, if you don't enjoy the approach, you're not going to stick at it. And then if you want to be consistent and if you want to continue to get results consistently, you're going to have to be able to stick at something. You can't stick at something you hate. Why would you? Life's too short to stick at something that you hate. So worth asking yourself how much you're enjoying the approaches you're currently taking to nutrition as well as your training. If you feel like there's a misalignment there, something's got to go. Something's got to tweak, especially if you want to keep that long term. You want to keep that built into your lifestyle. You want to keep those routines and behaviors long term and keep the results that you get from that long term. It's not going to be if it's from a place of force. If you're forcing yourself to be keto but actually you enjoy carbs, it's not going to be sustained. If you're forcing yourself to run but you don't like running, you may even hate running, it's not going to stick long term. So always come from the space of, what do I enjoy? What fits with my lifestyle? They're 2 really good questions to ask yourself whenever you go about creating change. Chances are, if you can tick those 2 boxes, whatever you do, you'll keep long term. And that's what we need if you want to not just lose weight, but keep it off once you've lost it. Because again, the issue is rarely losing weight. Most people have lost weight. Keeping it off? No, that's the part where people seem to have more troubles, more conundrums, more challenges. So I really, really encourage you to ask yourself those 2 questions. That was a long one, guys. Thank you for listening. That is a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this live training. They're the shifts that I've made for myself with my own training and shifts I encourage you to consider for yourself. If you want this sent to you, then please leave me a comment and I will email it over to you. This will become a podcast, so I can send that over to you once that's put together. This will be posted onto my Instagram feed as well. So if you're not following me, make sure you follow me on Instagram. It's at Team Laura Phillips. Phillips is PHILLIPS. So make sure you follow me there because this will be going straight to my feed. From there, you can replay it, obviously. If you have suggestions on topics you'd like me to cover in the future, make sure you leave them. I want to talk about what you want to hear about, of course. I always want to be of value to you and service to you. So do make sure you leave me your suggestions and comments below so I can make sure I address that. And outside of that, please have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.